President Sisi welcomes the Rwandan President Kagame today at El Ittihadiyya Palace during his official visit to Egypt. Egypt's Prime Minister Madbouli highlights 40 years of pursuing a Middle East peace. Egypt's Foreign Minister rejects unilateral actions in Eastern Nile Basin at the UN meeting with Uganda. And Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has welcomed the Rwandan President Paul Kagame today at El Ittihadiyya Palace during his official visit to Egypt. The Egyptian and Rwandan presidents reaffirmed strong bilateral ties and signing several cooperation agreements in areas including water management, housing, logistics, and investment protection. President Sisi emphasized Egypt's support for Rwanda's Vision 2050 and its readiness to share expertise in healthcare, construction, and pharmaceuticals. He also stressed Egypt's commitment to the African peace and development, particularly in the Great Lakes region. On regional issues, both leaders discussed the Nile Basin cooperation and the situation in Gaza. El-Sisi reiterated Egypt's rejection of any displacement of Palestinians and called for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. The visit concluded with a joint press conference and the signing of memoranda of understanding to expand Egypt-Rwanda strategic cooperation. And Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has welcomed the two-state solution conference in New York, calling it a historic opportunity to end decades of conflict and suffering. In a post on his official Facebook page, President Sisi stressed that recognizing an independent Palestinian state is not a dream, but a rightful cause for which Palestinians have long struggled, supported by peace-loving nations worldwide. He affirmed that this path remains the only way to secure lasting peace, stability, and cooperation across the region. Egypt's Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has stressed Egypt's four-decade pursuit of peace and stability in the Middle East. And delivering Egypt's address on behalf of the President at the UN High-Level Conference on Palestine, Madbouli affirmed that no regional stability is possible without a just settlement granting Palestinians an independent state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. The Egyptian Foreign Minister firmly rejected any displacement attempts, calling them ethnic cleansing, and announced Egypt will host Gaza's reconstruction conference once a ceasefire is achieved. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati reaffirmed Egypt's rejection of unilateral actions in the Eastern Nile Basin during a meeting with the Ugandan Foreign Minister J.J. Odongo in New York on the sidelines of the 80th UN General Assembly session. Abdelati emphasized that the Nile is an existential issue for Egypt and warned that Cairo would take all necessary steps under international law to safeguard its water security. He called for cooperative efforts that serve the interests of all the Nile Basin nations. The two ministers also discussed regional security, including the situation in Somalia and Sudan, and pledged to work together to support peace and stability across Africa. Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati reaffirmed Egypt's nomination of Dr. Khaled Al-Anani for the UNESCO Director General, emphasizing his vision of culture as a driver for peace, cooperation, and future development. Speaking at the Ancient Civilizations Forum in New York, Abdelati cited growing international support for Al-Anani, who has visited over 60 countries to engage with member states. He also stressed the need to protect cultural heritage in conflict zones, including Palestine, and called for a greater global commitment to the UNESCO conventions. Singaporean President Tharman Shanmugaratnam oversaw the delivery of a major Gaza aid package during a visit to the Egyptian Crescent, the ERC. The shipment included 2 relief planes, 9 food trucks, and a sea cargo totaling over 159 tons of aid. The ERC officials also announced a mobile education unit for Gaza's children, part of the ongoing Singaporean support since 2023. Egypt's Social Solidarity Minister praised the visit and highlighted Egypt's aid efforts. Over 570,000 tons delivered with the help from 35,000 volunteers. Egyptian naval units have arrived in Turkey to participate in the joint naval drill Friendship Sea 2025. The multi-day exercise aims to enhance and combat readiness, unify operational concepts, and strengthen military cooperation between the two nations. Activities include lectures and naval maneuvers focused on modern warfare tactics and joint mission execution. Egyptian Petroleum Minister Karim Badawi met his Jordanian counterpart Salah El-Kharabshay in Amman to strengthen energy cooperation, focusing on natural gas, infrastructure, and expertise sharing. The visit also marked a leadership handover at the Jordanian-Egyptian Fajr company, with Yasser Salahuddin taking over as CEO. Fajr operates key sections of the Arab gas pipeline linking Egypt and Jordan. Egypt's Institute of Diplomatic Studies signed an MOU with Mauritania's Diplomatic Academy in Cairo to enhance cooperation through academic exchanges and training. The agreement builds on outcomes from the Egypt-Mauritania Joint Committee and aims to support Mauritanian diplomatic staff with tailored programs and expertise sharing. Assistant Foreign Minister Mohammed Gad visited the African Space Agency, the AFSA headquarters in Cairo, meeting with the AFSA President Dr. Tidiane Ouattara to discuss support for the agency and Egypt's role in advancing Africa's Agenda 2063. Gad also met with the Egyptian Space Agency CEO, Dr. Mohammed El-Khoussi, to review progress on handing over the AFSA's permanent headquarters and explore cooperation opportunities. Egypt has seen and been named one of the world's top travel destinations in a global TripAdvisor survey, citing its pharaonic heritage, natural beauty, and improved tourism infrastructure. Visitor numbers rose to 15% over the past year, with a high praise for landmarks like the Giza Pyramids, Egyptian Museum, Luxor temples, and Abu Simbel. Nature spots such as Ras Mohammed Reserve and Mount Sinai were also highlighted, while Sharm el-Sheikh beaches scored a poor 4.5 for marine life and activities. Cairo International Airport handled 2.87 million passengers in August 2025, up an 8.4% from July and 8% year on year, with flight numbers also rising by 7% monthly and 5% annually. Meanwhile, Cairo and Hurghada airports received environmental awards from Airports Council International Africa for sustainability efforts, while Alexandria's Burj Al Arab airport was recognized for waste recycling. These honors support Egypt's national aviation strategy focused on service quality and environmental performance. And Egypt's Minister of International Cooperation, Rania El-Mashat, met with the French ambassador, Eric Chevalier, to discuss implementing the economic partnership deal signed during President Macron's April visit to Cairo. The agreement aims to boost cooperation in healthcare, education, infrastructure, and private sector development. El-Mashat emphasized Egypt's focus on creating an investment-friendly climate and supporting private sector-led growth through its own economic roadmap aligned with Vision 2030. Both sides affirmed plans to expand French investments, especially in SMEs and green development. The Central Bank of Egypt, the CBE, hosted a delegation from the South African Reserve Bank at its facilities in the new administrative capital to showcase its advanced banknote printing and currency management systems. The three-day visit included 9 SARB experts who explored CBE's automation, risk controls, and governance. Officials exchanged insights on currency operations and research collaboration. CBE's banknote printing house chief, Khalid Farouk, said the visit reflects Egypt's leadership in central banking infrastructure. The delegation toured the bank's cash center and printing house, with SARB's Delia Sampson praising the exchange as a key step towards deeper African cooperation. And Egypt's exports rose a 6.5% in 2024 to $45.3 billion, but imports surged a 13.2% to a $95.3 billion, widening the trade deficit. Official CapMass data showed non-petroleum exports grew a 14.4% to $39.9 billion, led by the gold $3.2 billion and garments $2.8 billion and plastics $2.3 billion. Top buyers included Saudi Arabia $3.5 billion, Turkey $3.5 billion, and the UAE $3.3 billion. Imports were driven by a 38.3% rise in petroleum products to $16.1 billion, while crude oil imports dropped 50.5%. China remained Egypt's top supplier at a $15.7 billion, followed by Saudi Arabia and the US. Alexandria handled the most trade, leading both export and import volumes. The number of foreign employees in Egypt's government and public sector dropped at 20.9% in 2024 to 774, down from 978 in 2023. And according to the CapMass, men comprised 93.2% of the workforce, and Europeans made up the greatest group at a 40.7%, followed by the non-Arab Asians, 20%. Most held university degrees, 49.9%, with scientific professionals forming the largest job category at a 65.1%. Public authorities employed 42%, and public business companies hired 34.9%, and nearly 80% were on renewed contracts. And Egypt's agricultural exports have exceeded 7.2 million tons so far in 2025, up by over 600,000 tons from last year. Agriculture Minister Ala Farouk announced citrus led with the 1.9 million tons, followed by potatoes 1.3 million tons and onions 256,000 tons. The minister credited farmers, exporters and regulators for boosting Egypt's global competitiveness through expanded production and strict quality standards. And that's the end of our news bulletin for this hour. And here's a quick recap of today's top stories. President Sisi welcomes the Rwandan President Kagame today at the Ittihadiyya Palace during his official visit to Egypt. And Egypt's Prime Minister Madbouli highlights 40 years of pursuing a Middle East peace. Egypt's foreign minister rejects unilateral actions in the Eastern Nile Basin at the UN meeting with Uganda. And that's all for now, and remember to stay updated by following Qnews for the latest developments.